I'm thrilled to be here. What a great cast of characters and engagement that we're going to have. My background, I'm the Vice President and Head of Sustainability at Everledger. Everledger is an emerging market technology company, primarily known for its distributed ledger or blockchain work in the diamond and battery space. We have 2 grants that we're doing with the U.S. Department of Energy on electric vehicle battery tracking through to recycling, as well as providing incentives to consumers to bring back portable electronics, as well as a host of other activities, but those will probably be the most notable for today, and thrilled to engage further in these conversations.
Excellent, thank you. All right, are you able to share your screen or do I have to enable you? I think you're ready, right? Yeah.
I'm ready, yeah.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Hi, my name is Carrie George, and I am pleased today to have representatives from Circle Economy and Fairphone. And I'm going to introduce both of them very quickly, just to say that I have been acquainted with Fairphone for about 7 years now, through some of my previous work at Apple, as well as the US State Department, and then with Circle Economy most recently through some of the engagements that Fairphone led with Circle Economy on how to engage technology. But I'm going to stop there and hand it over to first Hilde and then to Miquel to introduce themselves and their organizations in more detail. Hilde?
Well, thank you, Carrie, for the short introduction already. Very happy to be here. My name is Hilde. I'm working for Circle Economy. It's a nonprofit impact organization with the main aim to deliver practical and scalable results to accelerate the transition to a circular economy. And specifically, I'm doing that on the finance field. So trying to look how can we move the financial sector and how can we improve financeability of circular business models.
Thank you, Hilde. This is Miquel Ballester from Fairphone. So I was one of the co-founders at Fairphone, and I'm at the moment design leads. I've been taking care of the circular economy activities at Fairphone, and that's, I guess, why I'm here as well. Fairphone is a for-profit social enterprise with the aim to create the market for ethical smartphones, and by doing that, inspire the rest of the industry to act more responsibly. We developed initiatives across the world in 4 different topics. One has to do with fair materials, the other one is working conditions, design of products to make them more long-lasting and repairable, and end of life for reuse and recycling. We have already in the market our 3rd smartphone, and we have over 250,000 clients across Europe. And we will be talking much more about Fairphone and our design later, so I will leave it there.
Thanks, Miquel. Thanks, Hilde. So let's kick it off for this quick conversation. Tell me a little bit more about how Fairphone and Circle Economy have worked together to redefine waste and address conversations and issues around obsolescence. And a little bit more about linear design versus circular design and economies around both of those.
Let me kick this one off. Fairphone and Circle Economy have been long-term partners already. We've done several projects together, and if you're thinking about a circular economy, then one of the main aims is that you're designing out waste. In, let's say, in a linear economy, you are extracting materials, you make normally very complex products, and you use it for a very short period of time, and then people throw it away and it ends up to be incinerated or as landfill, and that's what we don't want to do. So we try to make that circle around. And what Fairphone does really nice is that it's a modular design and it's built for, let's say, long-lasting use. Ideally that the product is taken back as well. So there is no waste in that circle, and that's let's say a business model that we as Circle Economy support. And together we have looked at, let's say, certain issues that they have encountered and how we could actually solve that. So we've looked at how to introduce, for example, the Fairphone as a service in the market. And that was one of our first projects. Maybe Miguel, you can elaborate a bit more on that one.
Yeah, sure. Like from the Fairphone perspective, as you said already, we already from our second device, that was Fairphone 2, we became modular in a way. So we were always trying to make our phones more repairable. So in order to make them more long-lasting, among many other things, I would say. And indeed, the part that we were missing, and to be honest, we are still missing because we are still working on it, is not only having a more circular product design. So that's what we have kind of achieved already and improved very much with Fairphone 3. It's also the business side. How can we have a business model that is more resource efficient, that is more relying on a relationship with the customer and a long relationship with the customer, and not necessarily with selling new hardware every year to them. And that's what we did also together with Circle Economy. I believe we will be linked to 2 different reports that we created together. So the first report is more around the whole business case of phone as a service. So indeed, having the user use the phone and pay a fee, a monthly fee for the use of that phone instead of having the ownership. So that keeps the ownership with the company and therefore the control on repair and getting the most out of that piece of hardware with us. So that's the first report. And the second report, we looked much more at how can we make sure that we know what the value of that asset is across that relationship with the customer. And we will be talking more about that later, I guess.
Excellent. And Miguel, just speak up just a little bit, and we'll go. Thank you. That's excellent. Let's talk a little bit more about phone as a service. So how does phone as a service, when you're talking about modularity, how do you encourage, and what is the difference in thinking for a consumer? What does it look like to have phone as a service? Who owns the product? How do you get reminded of improvements? Why does modularity matter in that? And is this really economically viable?
I can go, I guess. So yes, it is economically viable, and it gives actually, I would say, many more opportunities for us as Fairphone to maybe even get a bit more revenue per customer as well, because it's based on this more, this longer relationship. Basically how it works, or how we want it to work, is that, yeah, you use the device, you don't own it. So that means that anything that has to do with repair would fall on us and within the model. That doesn't mean only that you don't necessarily have to pay for every repair, but it also means that it's very much facilitated for you. For example, as an example, we have a replaceable battery, very easy to replace. In a traditional sales model, you would just sell the device and then hope that the customer comes back to buy a new battery when the time is there. But as a service proposition, we can actually proactively ask the customer, hey, is it now time for you to get a new battery? How are we doing? How is the phone doing? So it's a much more relationship transaction in a way than it is with a traditional model. And because we have a modular device, also the operational costs to stay true to that proposition are lower, because basically a battery, we don't need to get that device back and repair it somewhere in a repair center. We can just send the battery to the customer, and the same goes for other modules of the phone.
And if I may just add to that, if you have a product as a service proposition, then the ownership of the devices stay with the producer, which actually ensures that, let's say, the incentives are aligned, because as a consumer, you want to have a product which is long lasting, but as a producer, you then want to have a product which is long lasting as well, because your consumer is paying, let's say, a monthly fee. So what Miguel's saying, you can actually earn, let's say, more money on a certain product because the life cycle is much longer, and it doesn't need to stop with, let's say, customer A. Actually, when customer A is done with it, you can actually move the product onto customer B. And then the modular design adds in, because maybe after lifetime customer A, the battery is kind of done. Then you only replace the battery, for example, and then the phone can still go on as a product. So the whole intention is longevity, let's say, of the products.
That's interesting. I think for a lot of North American customers, that would be very foreign, but very welcomed. You know, we get a lot of communication about changing over our phones every year or 2 years, and our telecom provider will send those to you. So if I understand, if I'm a member of Verizon or of AT&T in the United States, I would instead be, you know, working just to pay for my phone that I'm kind of leasing from one of those. And then they're telling me when to update or so on, different parts and pieces, a camera, a battery. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, correct. That's actually, if we would use the words that are a bit more traditional, then it would be also the difference between more a financial lease or an operational lease. So we are talking about an operational lease, but it's more than an operational lease, because actually when you think as a service, like there are many other things that you can add to this service. So we can say in one invoice, for example, it's telecom and hardware together. It's much more, or many other services that you could attach to it. Maybe storage service, maybe other services that can come on top.
Interesting.
That detaches it from the idea of buying hardware. Why do we want to buy hardware? Hardware becomes obsolete eventually, and we need to recycle it. We need to take care of buying a new one. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we just have our needs from telecom perspective served at any moment, always with the best technology available from our side? That's a little bit the idea. Also, I'm de-burdening you from having to even take that decision every year of what is your next phone. Of course, that comes together with having a phone that works properly, that is supported with software for long term, and that's exactly why such a model is so interesting, because then the responsibility, what Hilde was just saying, improving the design, improving the support falls on you, right, as a company. So you keep on working to make that more streamlined and better as you go.
Really fascinating. I think some of this is mind-blowing, and then some of it's obvious, right? Of course we should do that. Wow, that makes so much sense, because the incentives, to your points, are really aligned with who is making the product, who has the most power to influence how the product is made, and then who is using the product and maintaining it could be what they're incentivized to do. This brings us to our final question. You know, you had brought, Miguel through Fairphone had brought me into a conversation with Circular Economy because the hat I wear as Everledger, we are doing work with the U.S. Department of Energy on reward for recycling, trying to incentivize consumers to bring more of their electronics back for recycling, and doing that through different types of technology. Could we talk about some of, you've talked a little bit about what you've done in your research to understand phone as a service and circular economy. And then recently you did a white paper on technology and brought together several technologists. How does technology and communications fit into all of this as well?
I think it plays a huge role. And following up on what we just said is that if, as a producer, you keep the control over your resources, then you want to know where those resources are, and what the condition of those resources is. And you need technology for that to be able to track and trace that. And maybe you want to know it of your product, or you want to know it of the modular assets, because they can sometimes be in a different location. So it can be quite a tricky question, but it definitely plays a huge role.
Yeah, just adding quickly on that, I think like especially the last report that you're referring to was all about how do we lower the risks of this proposition using technology as well, or what is the role that technology can play in lowering those risks, lowering the risks for financiers, but also our own operational risks as a company, risks on design or improving user satisfaction. And that it proved that indeed what Hilde was saying, like knowing more about what is the condition of that asset that you still own at each point of time of this journey with these customers helps in lowering those risks. I can speak very much for the ones that are about Fairphone and operational risks, but it would, for example, help us understand what are our inventory requirements in the future. So for example, taking that example of the battery again, right? If we know exactly what is the condition of the batteries out there and when they are going to start failing, then we can plan much better. And we can give a much better service to our customers because we can be proactive about it. Even before the problem appears, we can say, hey, you've gone now over a certain amount of cycles. Here, we are sending you a new battery because you will need it very soon. So that is super powerful for us when it comes to the user satisfaction, but also keep on improving the design of the product because we could get this data, let's say, live and ongoingly. And what I learned very much also from Hilde and from the team of Circle Economy is the consequences also for financing. So you basically have a model that is much easier to value because you know like where all these assets are and what their condition are, and that de-risks. So that was, at least for me, like a very big learning.
Absolutely. Well, I'll be sure to link to both the white papers, the first and the second on this, and make sure people are able to contact you. But as a bonus question, I'm just curious, how do you feel as though, because you guys are both in the Netherlands, you have a lot of initiatives in the Netherlands, can you give a little bit of background of why you're passionate about this and why you feel kind of enabled to do this, maybe either through a government or a culture? What's kind of bringing this together that makes this all make sense?
Oh, nice bonus question. I think it's definitely for me, it's a personal passion to, let's say, work for the circular economy. And I truly believe that this is, let's say, the systemic change that we need. I think it's pretty obvious that we currently live in a very, let's say, world where we consume far too much. And we did some research as well that currently only, let's say, 10%, only less in the world is circular. So we are at 8.6%. So it means that over 90% of our commodities is just wasted. And I just got a kid, got a baby, and I actually want him to live up in a world that we can still all be proud of. And I wish that for, let's say, his kids as well, and further and further. So we need to really step up the game and do everything that we can to make the changes which are required.
So I'll stop there. And Scott, you know, you can see that there's so many learnings that we can have from Fairphone and the work that Circle Economy's done. Again, I'll make sure that those white papers are done, but maybe now we open it with Mona and Scott, I'll hand it back over to you.
Sure, thank you. So yeah, I just wanted to introduce Mona. Mona, why don't you give a quick background on yourself, very high level, yeah, for like 2 minutes, and have a few questions as well to really, yeah, so. Thank you, Mona.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Scott. My name is Mona Tajani, and I, for over 20 years, I've been focusing my practice as a lawyer entirely on renewable energy, sustainable finance. I think of all the 3 items that Scott does. What I'm doing is I'm really working with investors and investments. I am the co-leader. I sit in New York for my law firm. We have over 3,000 lawyers worldwide. I'm in a unique position because I sit in New York, but I'm also in normal times in London, and I practice out of London as well. I'm dual qualified there. So we're seeing a lot of, this circular economy coming here to the United States. And what I do is lead a team of lawyers. My background is I was an engineer, and then I went into law. And what we're doing is we advise on sustainability, on circular economy, attracting investments, doing joint ventures, finding strategic partners. And we work with Scott and others on his team, and more with the, educating the bankers, and then actually structuring the deals to have these programs come to fruition. We also advise on the various different legal regulations that are out there too, as well. So I'm delighted to be here. And if you wouldn't mind, I do have a couple questions that I wanted to ask. And I think, it would be helpful for our audience to know from our experts. I would say, one of my first questions is, we represent a lot of OEMs in this space. So my first question is, how can OEMs strategically use technology for improving and recycling, tracking, like the reward to recycle program, to increase? I think, Carrie, maybe if you had any words on that.
Absolutely. I think to what Hilde was pointing to, with only 8% of consumer products worldwide actually being circular, one of the reasons, and we see this across the globe, I was just—
Carrie, talk up a little bit. I can't hear you. Just a wee bit.
Oh, sorry.
That's better. That's better. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Across the world, there's only a limited actual circular element of consumer products. And a good percentage of that is related to actual consumer awareness and consumer behavior. We can go into the ins and outs of that, but we need to help consumers have ease of logistics, meaning both how to get something there and where to go to drop it off. Because so much of our consumer products right now have to be segregated and sorted appropriately. And a lot of that will go back to stores that they bought it from. That'll be the obvious play. And that's where we see the greatest success in terms of foot traffic in retail stores. That's a mutual benefit. When someone drops it off at a Best Buy or at a Home Depot to bring their power tool battery or something, you're already there. It's a benefit for the retailer. It's a benefit for the product owner. And you see that with organizations like HP having a lot of success in North America. We need that times 1,000 in basically every product category. And there will be some products that honestly the packaging and the products themselves have to be redesigned because they just are not viable for recycling and design for, that end of life utility and circularity. But yeah, those are some key points. And so reward to recycle gives an opportunity for consumers to know where to go, when to go, how to get maintenance, how to get benefits and points. And those are all embedded in it. And the Department of Energy has sponsored that because of the necessity to get those materials back in great quantities.
That's great. Now, we also heard today from Hilde and Miguel on some emerging technologies. And I'm wondering, Carrie, if you could talk about some of the emerging technologies that you are excited about that are helping companies efficiently track the life cycle of product from concept to consumer, while enabling an increased level of transparency and accountability across their supply chain.
Absolutely.
Elaborate a little more. Yeah,
absolutely. Some of the things that we're looking at is really trying to embed the technology, whether it be blockchain, so that ownership across various life cycles and uses. If it's an electric vehicle battery, for every person that owns the car and every time that battery is transitioned to a new owner, including to the garage, to the recycler, or to the refurbisher, so it can be turned into a power storage unit, that the appropriate data and the appropriate information about, let's say, its utility, its cycles, its chemistry, its safety measures, carry with it with that ownership. That's where circularity becomes a market play, when you can carry enough information forward that anyone can use it. This is equally important for anything from reselling, doors from deconstruction to your phone, so that you know that it's been appropriately wiped, and that your privacy has been protected, to, like I said, an electric vehicle battery, so it can be reused in a power storage environment. So we're utilizing blockchain distributed ledger, but also things like smart contract, machine vision, different types of tracking and reading of information, certifications, other things, and making sure that distributed and permissioned ownership is enabled.
Very cool. Scott, I think I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to piggyback on that note briefly. Also,
Okay.
from the manufacturer's standpoint, and this is kind of what I've heard from people that we've been working with, but if they look at the lens, the manufacturer, say they produce, just use a round number, $1 billion in goods annually, and those goods are depreciating those assets, those hard assets. If we go to the higher level people, or if they understand from their lens that they can capture between 10 to 30% of those assets and avoid them from going to landfill, and it's actually a monetary benefit, they're going to move their organization forward. One of the issues is that the C-suite and the people at the top don't look at it under that type of lens. And if we start, really working in that way holistically throughout this full supply chain, then they're going to understand how to, that it's a monetary aspect to this, and it's just not the social and the environmental, because all three have to be married to move this forward. So, yeah.
Couldn't agree more, Scott. And I think there are companies, when they're being strategic and playing in that space, really, as you say, holistically, they capture the financial benefits, the market benefits, and then the environmental ones. And you're exactly right.
Exactly. So great. Well, we're going to move on to our next presentation. Thank you so much.